Hello, welcome back to From the BON. This is the rapid reaction to Burnley 0, Chelsea 2. Simon Evans here with Darren Bentley and Chris Bowden. Let's start off looking at that early part of that game. Chris, I mean, for the first half an hour, Burnley were quite impressive, really, and created some half openings, and then it almost inevitably started to go against us.
Yeah, it was sort of we showed we could get in behind them if the run's right, if the pass is right. Chuana gets in and rather sort of delays and complicates things, and just be positive, drive, use your pace, drive at goal, and try and get a shot away. We've always got an absolute rocket of a shot. But he got rather snuffed out, and Anthony again didn't really back himself to break clear as he was and get something on target. So, but after that encouraging start, and we're not trouble whatsoever really. They had a bit of possession, and I thought we did quite well at snapping into them and breaking things up for a spell. But once the goal goes in, you get that, you can sense it in the ground. Everyone knew, well, that's pretty much it, isn't it? We're not going to come back from this, and all the intensity sort of it was sucked out of the crowd. It was sucked out of the team, and second half was as tame, meek surrender as you get, really.
And there was that sort of effort, really, Daz, towards the end. Last 15 minutes felt like, after the substitutions, like we put them under a little bit of pressure, but not that touch of creativity or ability to open them up, really. I mean, we've created very few chances.
We know we struggle for creativity anyway, but what you can do is at least have intensity. And from about the 20th minute on in that game, maybe 25 minutes, until the last 15 minutes, there was a complete and utter lack of any of that. The substitutions I felt came about 10 minutes too late. It was evident 5-10 minutes at the latest into the second half that nothing was really developing, or there was no pressure on the ball. The substitutions had to be made then for me, but they weren't made till about the 67th minute. And then lo and behold, we start having a bit more intensity about us. Hannibal has to be on that pitch a bit earlier for me, because he would have been the one who would drive into people and snap a few tackles in and get the crowd back on side. Because the crowd, as Chris said, had gone so quiet. There was almost like an understanding amongst everybody that we'd gone one down and we don't score goals, so that's probably it. And lo and behold, that's what happened. But the lack of intensity really bothered me. I couldn't understand why we're standing off them and just letting having their centre-backs have almost like a training exercise for half an hour in that second half.
Do you feel the same about that, Chris? Intensity like it?
Pretty much. From my seat, I was just sort of installing the players just to sort of, like I say, get into people's faces, snap into tackles, get the crowd roused and lifted. But there was none of that. We were all too passive. It was all in front of us, but there was no sort of real effort to sort of. I don't know. I think we could have gone after this set. They're undoubtedly a good side, Chelsea. Don't get me wrong. I think we could have gone after these. There's a few, as we said pre-match. It don't matter what side they put out. They're good players in every position, but I thought it was an opportunity today. I thought they were weaker than they could have been, and it's just far too much respect shown to them, really, and just frustrated. Like in the end, when we, let's have a go. We've come off there and we thought, well, for a couple of flurries late on, which did, to me, a goalkeeper, I don't fancy in any way, shape, or form, and you should be bombarding. Could have played me a deck chair on again.
I mean, it felt like in that first half hour that it's international break, early kickoff, trip up north. It felt a bit like one of those games where, I mean, I think Maresca had even mentioned the early start being unfair and so on, giving them that excuse if they wanted it, and it did feel like they weren't really at the races at the start, and we were getting after them, but it didn't last. I mean, it does seem as well, Daz, like when you watching this team, and a couple of friends of mine have watched that game today who don't normally watch Burnley, and have said, you're pretty good up until the final third, aren't you? And I think it's a decent observation from them, really, because it does seem to just break down now. I mean, Anthony's form isn't getting any better. We talked about that in the preview. But the front three as a whole just weren't very effective, were they?
We've never still got to grips with this number 10, what we're going to do with that number 10. You know, for all of their efforts and all of their attributes, that middle three of Cullen, Florentino, and Ogachukwu isn't quite dynamic enough for me. The wide men are woefully out of form, and Fleming today, the two centre-backs, put him in the back pocket and kept him there for an hour because he towered over him. They won pretty much every header, and he just ploughed a lone furrow. And the observation that your friends make is completely right. I had the same person said the same thing to me coming away from the stadium, who I don't see very often, but he was at the turf today, and he said, it's okay up till we got into their half, wasn't it? And that's the problem. We have to score 2 goals in every game at the minute to get something, and we don't look like half the time scoring 1. So it's a recipe that's not going to go down well, I don't think, as the season progresses. We're now in the bottom 3. I worry that we're probably entrenched in there now until at least January, and then it depends what happens in the transfer market, doesn't it? But there's a resignation now, I think, starting to appear amongst the fans again that it's another one of those seasons. And I say it again, it's took me till November to say this time, but I hate this league. It's not for us. We're always,
we are, though, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, we're always trying to get somewhere in this league, and it's no matter what we do, you're batting.
Like I say, I suspect, we said before, I think Sunderland might well slip into the pack, but they're halfway to safety now. But it just goes to show. I know they've spent more than we have, but for a club that came from, they were 20 odd points adrift of us and Leeds, to make that up in the transfer market, what they spent 50, 60 million quid more than we have. It's the quality of the recruitment, though. I don't think we've recruited badly, but you can point the finger at a couple of them and say, like I say, I mean, Broya was a gamble, and it looks like it's not going to pay off. But Brun Larson is still. I mean, I thought he was better than he has been today, but he's not good enough. And I think we already knew that from a season in the Premier League last time. But,
there's a few of them, Chris.
But I say,
top end of the pitch keeps you up. Top end of the pitch keeps you up.
Sunderland's recruitment has shown that you can punch against the big boys if you get that right. And I suspect Leeds haven't got it right either. But I don't want to say it's like, you can't. It's too big a divide. It's too big a gap. Because I think you can. There's ways and means today. Burnley of old today would have rattled that lot, got right in their noses, and they'd have made life uncomfortable for them.
But
you're right, Chris.
But this
team
team
we're not
earlier,
helping ourselves, are we? We're not helping ourselves at the minute.
But earlier this season, we were taking the game on against teams like Liverpool and Manchester United. We were far more than we did today, I think. There was that intensity was there earlier in this season, and that what worries me is you two lads are sat there on the turf. I'm watching on television, so you don't feel things like intensity the same way on television. But if you're telling me that there wasn't the necessary intensity there, it was there earlier in the season, so that's a real worry.
I still think. I mean, they weren't a huge threat against Liverpool. They had a couple of breaks again where, I think is it Chuan had a shot and Anthony had a shot, and that was it basically. But like I say, we're actually playing like fluent enough football, but I said we're not set for a set piece threat. We're not a direct side as such, and it's. We are not going to out-football these teams, especially in the final third. And if you need creativity in the final third. We have to accept that our most creative footballers aren't getting a sniff. Marcus Edwards is sat. What's he had in the Premier League? 10 minutes. He is lightweight, but he's creative. He's more creative than any of the other wide players we have put together.
Certainly a case for having a look at him. I mean, I said on this podcast last season that I think he's a championship player because he won't be strong enough physically for the Premier League. But we don't know. We haven't seen evidence of that. He hasn't been given a chance. So, But not signing a number 9 is come back to bite us on the arse, hasn't it?
All day.
Totally.
And for me, they were the worst. Liverpool didn't play well at Burnley, but they dominated the ball, and you always felt Liverpool had something in the locker. Today, I thought they were the worst of the big guns that we've played, and we've meekly rolled over and surrendered. We were worried too much in that second half about pressing them and then playing in behind us and being on the back four, so we sat off. And then the centre-backs, because they're 1-0 up, just pass it amongst themselves. And at that point, you need a Hannibal on there to go and snap a few ankles. And as we said, just get the crowd up and just try and make something happen. But we didn't want to make anything happen until he made that triple substitution on 67 minutes and tried to put a little bit of intensity in the game. And by then, the game's passing you by. 3/4 of it's gone. We have to do it earlier. We have to. You're right. A Sean Dyche side, and I don't like harking back to Sean Dyche, but a Sean Dyche side comes off with sweat dripping off the shirts, and they've been snapping into tackles, and they've never stopped running. Can you say that today? I'm not sure you can.
So the one thing I will say about, I'd agree. I thought they were the most average of the elite clubs we've played so far, but the physicality was frightening.
Yeah,
I didn't think we got an awful lot. I don't think we got an awful lot from the referee. I thought Fleming was hard done too. I mean, the centre halves played ever so well for Chelsea, but I didn't think they got, the amount of times that, how's he supposed to jump when he's got 2 arms around his chest? Things like that, he can't. But the sheer physicality, the players back, I mean, sat here saying, go on, rattle into a few tackles, and there should have been more intensity. But again, their physicality was, I was hugely impressed with it.
One thing we should discuss before we wrap up is that rather bizarre non-penalty incident in the first half. I mean, I've watched 5 or 6 replays of it, and the way the keeper plays it, Sanchez plays it out to Chalobah and then dashes back into his goal.
Yeah,
he's clearly kicked off, and Chalobah's picked it up, and there's not been a decision given on that.
No, well, it's the poorest referee in the lot, isn't he, Banks? I think the way, I mean, he fell twice. The lad Andre Santos, we're talking about Chelsea's physicality. Good grief. I mean, the lad, I thought he needed, last rites reading out at one stage when Josh Cullen went in with him. He's waving his hand like, he's in dire need of, immediate surgery or something. Then he picks himself up, walks off and runs back on. And he did the same later on. But Banks is woeful. But if you see that incident, like as you say, Sanchez he's retreating, hasn't he? He's kicked off. Now Tyrone Mings gets done for that for Villa in the Champions League, and that was I think that the one incident that decided that particular game there. And I mean, it's a moot point to say, do we get anything if we get that penalty? But you just don't get these decisions. Every week we're sort of saying, "Ooh, well, letter of the law, that's a shirt pull. Letter of the law, that's a handball. Penalties. Well, that letter of the law is a penalty, and we haven't got it."
Did we appeal it? Because I don't remember. I remember the incident, but I don't. I'm on the other end of the pitch in the Jimmy Mack, but I don't remember any of our lads appealing.
Fleming had his hands up straight away.
If you go to the ref and shout in his ear, he could at least alert VAR to have a look at it. Because I bet it wasn't even looked at by VAR. It just went, didn't it?
Didn't appear.
And the incident in the second half, by the way, is just as poor from the referee, where Estev's clearly being held back. Ball's not in place, so it's not a penalty, but he's clearly been held back, so the referee warns him. Then they try it again, and he's holding him again, and he books him. And then for the third time, Estev tries to drive across the goal line, and he impedes him again, but it's play on this time.
Ball were in play by then as well.
Yeah. So he could easily...
VAR did look at that one. VAR did the third one. VAR looked at it to see, presumably, whether the ball was in play or not.
But yeah, he was a poor ref. But the ref didn't cost us the game today.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. But he is the worst. He is the worst there is.
Yeah.
Not a good day. Not a good day all round. But plenty to talk about in terms of how we start to sort this out, because it is starting to feel a bit grim, isn't it? So that's one for the boys tomorrow on the debrief to sort of dig into what can be done to get this team going back in the right direction. It's a sticky patch of form here. It's not going well, but thanks very much, lads, for joining us. And, we'll be back tomorrow with another one in more detail and looking ahead a little bit as well. Until then, up the Clarets.